we get these hallucinations, which again, there's another anthropomorphization. Hallucination. Isn't that cute? Let's be candid. What did it do? It lied. It fabricated. It's an error. Why don't we talk about ChatGPT and say, what's its error rate? Oh no, it had a hallucination. It's like we're almost apologizing that maybe it was on drugs or it wasn't feeling well. It just had a hallucination.
Jonathan Schaeffer has spent decades in artificial intelligence, including 40 years at the University of Alberta. And now he is building Kind, a local AI product designed to work with your data in files without sending them to the cloud AI providers. In this conversation, Jonathan explains why LLMs fabricate, why friendly chats make people overtrust them, and why 95 or even 99% accuracy may not be enough. This is conversation about trust, privacy, and how to use AI as augmented intelligence, not as an authority that thinks for you. Welcome, Jonathan. Thank you for your time today.
Hey, it's a pleasure. I'm delighted to be here.
Sure. So I want to start this conversation. People use AI today and it gives pretty intelligent answers. But as I understand, your argument is that you cannot always trust AI tools. What are some of the biggest dangerous misconceptions that you think people have about this?
Actually, you said the very first one. You described these programs as intelligent. I disagree. we tend to anthropomorphize them. We think of them as human or human-like. And yet, if you look at what they're doing, if I were to pretend I was a professor and explain to you the algorithm, you would say, that is so incredibly stupid. There's no intelligence there. It's dumb. But it works. Okay? The mantra in the field of artificial intelligence is you do whatever you want. It's the result that counts. And in the case of these large language models, these programs like ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude, there is no intelligence. So that's the first thing that we need to understand, because that explains a lot when you start talking about the answers that you get back from these programs. We get these hallucinations, which again, there's another anthropomorphization. Hallucination. Isn't that cute? Let's be candid. What did it do? It lied. It fabricated. It's an error. Why don't we talk about ChatGPT and say, what's its error rate? Oh no, it had a hallucination. It's like we're almost apologizing that maybe it was on drugs or it wasn't feeling well. It just had a hallucination. But again, when you look at the algorithms, because there's no intelligence, it doesn't really understand what you're asking. And therefore, you'll get responses that have no relationship to what you actually asked. And although this is very simplistic, at the core of the algorithm is a coin flipping mechanism. And sometimes it flips the coin in the right way and it looks brilliant. Okay, I'm anthropomorphizing, but from your point of view, it may look brilliant in its answer. And sometimes you flip it and the coin goes the other way and it looks incredibly silly and stupid. This is sort of, I guess, what I'd like to believe, and I hope that I'm right, is that I know that there are fundamental flaws in what we're doing today, and these problems aren't going to go away. Hallucinations are there. They will always be part of the algorithm. It's never going to be solved using the ways that we currently build these programs. But I hope what's going to happen is that this is a stepping stone to a better technology, one which we've learned a lot from the current models, and this new hypothetical technology addresses those problems and gives us a much better, more accurate, safer, private, whatever, insightful experience.
Yeah. Okay, great. And I know you have a long history of working and researching and building with artificial intelligence in general. But when first you started realizing that there is a problem with trust with these tools?
Um, so I'd seen and played with earlier versions of ChatGPT. But then on November 30th, 2022, my world changed. Now you're sitting there thinking, November 30th, 2022, what happened that date? Well, that's the date that the new ChatGPT came out. And it rocked my world because I've been in AI for a long, long time. And it did things that I never thought I would see anytime soon. And I was
Mm-hmm.
stunned because it was so much better than what we'd seen before. The answers were better, the capabilities. And of course, this was a big media event. And ever since that date, the world has gone AI crazy. And we've seen, I don't know, countless trillions of dollars going into AI or AI infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
But very quickly, problems started surfacing. The first, of course, was the hallucinations, the errors. And in the early days, they were quite frequent, and they were laughable. It was
Mm-hmm.
funny, and it was amazing. But later on at the university, it became quite unsettling because students started using it. And because this is an AI program and it's the latest algorithms and it's been trained on all the world's data, they believed what it said. It like there was this trust relationship that I'm just a student and here is this super intelligent
Mm-hmm.
program that's going to give me all the answers. And clearly that's wrong. But the trust level between the student and the program was such that they weren't questioning the results. They believed it just because this is like amazing. And that was unsettling because as a researcher, I know how the algorithm works and I know that it can't be trusted to be accurate. What we've seen since then, and this will sound rather cynical, and the AI companies probably don't like the word I use, but uh, they've applied a lot of band aids. So the errors are still there, but they put on all these extra patches, fixes to cover scenarios that people point out that are embarrassing. So, just as a personal example, when ChatGPT first came out, I said, "Hey, who is Jonathan Schaeffer?" And it gave a bio, and it was really interesting. And I showed it to somebody, and they said, "Wow, what an incredible career you've had! Look at what you've done! Look at all those awards! That's amazing!" And then I pointed out 21 errors in a page and a half of text. And I gave a live demo on this program of ChatGPT and asked it my bio about a year and a half later, and it had 23 errors. And then about a year later, or less than that, I gave another demo, and it was almost perfect. What? What?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it seems a lot of people were asking for their bios. So what did they do? They added a band aid. Oh, if this looks like a biography, go to Wikipedia. And if you can find the person, use the Wikipedia. Oh, and if it's not there, look in an authoritative source like the Encyclopedia Britannica. Actually, you and I are the generation, we know what the Encyclopedia Britannica is.
Yeah.
I used that once in my classroom, and the students said, "What are you talking about?" They had no idea what that was. But, and of course, you can go to the Internet Movie Database to get biographies of actors and directors or history databases. And it goes out and searches to see if it can find a biography, and then it ingests it and spews it out.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's almost perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's an example of a band aid. And there's all sorts of other band aids, hundreds, thousands of band aids that are applied. And the errors are there, they're disguised, right? It's like, to use a graphic image, somebody got really seriously injured in a car crash. Oh, look at all the cuts, look at all the bruises, the broken bones, this, that, and the other thing. We're going to take a band aid and we're going to put a band aid on this cut, and we'll put another band aid on that cut. And
Mm-hmm.
oh, we'll wipe the blood away here. And the person looks better. They're not bleeding as much. It doesn't look so horrible. But you haven't solved the real problem. The real problem is Maybe maybe their lungs have collapsed. All these cosmetic changes don't fundamentally change the
Yeah.
nature that the patient is sick, really sick. And maybe that's a bit too dramatic for these programs, but the fundamentals, what's inside these programs, still has problems. The band aids hide it, they don't solve it.
Hmm. It reminds me a story that when I first came to my computer science class long time ago in the university, and professor said basically, look around you. Who do you think is the stupidest here in this room? And we were like, what are you talking about? How you don't even know us? And he said, it's computers in front of you. So those machines are like, dumb iron things. And now we pretty much saying the same thing about AI, because we're realizing more and more with our experience that they are not that smart. And I use AI every day, and I see issues left and right myself, and I sometimes spend more time messing with it and correcting it rather than just doing from scratch.
But you are the smart one because you recognize that there's a problem. And when you get an answer back, you do the homework to validate whether the answer is correct. I don't want to be embarrassed. I write blog posts, I write books, I give
Hmm.
public speaking. I don't trust these programs to give me the right answer, which means I spend the time to verify the facts before I use them because I don't want to be embarrassed in public. But what's surprising about these programs is they can be incredibly useful, but I still have to invest time to make
Yeah.
sure that I'm getting back the information that I need and that
Yeah.
it's correct.
Yeah, and I think this is critical, especially for students, like you mentioned. It's amazing how they believe that right from, like, it's like believing a stranger on the street, whoever says something. It's I don't know. I've been, I guess, raised in a different manner. My parents always told me don't trust strangers by default. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
But you know what? This is one of the things that is very disturbing about some of these chatbot programs. And again, the word chat is an
Yeah.
anthropomorphization, but they become more friendly. They talk to you in
Mm.
a way that tries to build a relationship. It gives you an answer and it says, um, "Would you like some more information?" Or "How can I be of further help? Would you like me to explain this?" Or "Do you want me to do that?" So they're trying to create this symbiotic relationship between you and the computer program. And of course, there have been many stories of with horrible outcomes where people have put trust in these programs and the program has given them bad advice and they've acted on that advice and sometimes bad things happen. It's
Hmm.
actually a dangerous situation when we're trusting a technology that we know has some flaws in it.
Yeah. So, given LLM's probabilistic nature, is there a way to make them like give you correct answers all the time?
So that's a good question, and I want to differentiate between correct and hallucinate.
Hmm.
And people sort of put the two words together, but I view them as differently. If you go to an LLM and ask it a question, it's been trained on the world's data. Everything it can find. I mean, it's insatiable. It wants more and more data. And
Hmm.
they've scraped as much data they can get from the internet, right? All of the Wikipedia is inside. All of the Internet Movie database is in there. Every commercial site that's publicly available is in there. Every book that's online, every research paper that's online, it's all in there. But they still want more because the results show more data leads to better, um, gradually better performance. So they've got all this information, and remember, they don't understand the question. So sometimes you get these um, these hallucinations, and they're funny in particular because it's pulled some data that it's been trained on, and that data could be really good. Like the Wikipedia is pretty darn good; it's excellent, in fact. But there's other sources that it's trained on which are suspect. And so it
Mm-hmm.
pulls them in and it becomes part of your answer, and you get these strange situations, which we call hallucinations. But there is a solution. If you have a data set that you've curated, it could be a personal data set, it could be your company's data, it could be all of just Wikipedia. You can build these LLMs, large language models, or something smaller, an LM, like a language model, and have it trained only on the data that you want it to be trained on. In other words, you curate the data and you say, this is the only data that I want it trained on. You've controlled it. And of course, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to ensure that in my data set is only data that I think is useful, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's stuff that's valuable, informative, that I believe is worth having. And I'm not going to put in all the junk. And then if you've filtered out all the junk, these language models will only extract answers from your data, which means they're not going to hallucinate, not in the sense that what you'll get from, say, a ChatGPT on occasion. However, that doesn't mean the answers are accurate or correct. They're just not fabrications. The
Mm-hmm.
answers will only come from your data, but they still might be wrong because the program may not have correctly interpreted your question, misunderstood it, perhaps not giving you enough of an answer, or maybe it's overdone it. But that's not a error per se. It's more of insufficient information in the data set, or insufficient information in the question that you ask, the query that you make. So you can create an environment where they don't hallucinate and fabricate answers, but it's still the reality that you're going to ask questions and perhaps not get back quite the right answer that you expect. But that's the same with
Mm-hmm.
you and me. You can ask me questions and might misinterpret what those questions are and give you
Mm-hmm.
back something that's not what you expect. And then what do? Oh, you say, oh yeah, that's not what I meant. And then you give
Yeah.
me the question with a bit more detail. And of course, if you do that with one of these large language models or language models, you get better results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, because I was thinking a little bit in a different direction, like maybe give some sort of citations or like verification badges, like we've seen in like social media, for example. So those type of, or maybe which source it came from, so you can go verify, kind of like an academic paper where you cite where you get your sources from. Um, but how realistic is that? I'm not sure.
Of course, it's there are things that you can do with your data that
Mm-hmm.
companies like Google can't do, because your data doesn't matter what your data is, it's small, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to Google, which is trying to map or understand the entire internet. I mean, what do you have on your laptop of data? Some gigabytes, tens, hundreds gigabytes. Maybe you have 100 gigabytes of data there. That's small. What's Google trying to index? Petabytes or yottabytes or who knows what, just massive amounts of data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a small system like your data, your personal data, data that you've curated, data like, my financial records or my summary of my investments, or you're writing a book and this is all the data to do with your book, or uh, you've got a passion and you're collecting stamps, and you've got information about all your stamps. You've curated the data. You've chosen the data that's relevant and that's useful to you, and then you can train these programs so that every fact is mapped back to the original source. And then when you ask questions, you can get the source for every single fact that's in your answer, because it all comes from your data. And you can do that because your data is small and it's easy to maintain all of that information. In other words, you can do things for your data that Google can't do for the world's data, or they could do, but the cost would be just enormous to do that. And so there are advantages to thinking about large language models or language models that operate not on the world's data, because you have no idea what's in that data. Nobody's told you what's in that data, as opposed to
Yeah.
doing it on your data where you know exactly, sorry, not where, you know what's exactly the data that's being used to train the answers.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I think this is a good time to switch to talk about what product you're building, which I think
Sure.
is called Kind, right? Um, can you tell us a little bit what it is and how it operates and things like that?
Sure. So you already touched on part of the motivation. I just got upset with these large language models, and it was several things. It was clearly the hallucinations,
Hmm.
because as a scientist, I want accurate answers. I don't want to have to question everything. Um, I also was annoyed um, at the attempts to anthropomorphize these chat programs. They became my friends, and they treated me like a friend, very chatty, very friendly. And no, you're not my friend. You're not intelligent. This is just a programming trick. It's a gimmick to try and make it look friendly. It's like, every time you log into one of these computers, it says hello. Well, a friend will say hello to you, but a computer saying hello is nothing. It's just putting text on the screen. There's no emotion. There's no feeling there. So those two things were annoyed me. And then, of course, I got further annoyed when I understood how these programs were hungry for data, all sorts of data. And when you've exhausted the internet, they'd love to get access to all of your personal data. Your data is, your data is gold, and it's not just your data files. That's the most visible data. It's everything you do on the internet. What websites do you go to? How long do you spend on a web page? What do you read? What do you purchase? Who do you
Hmm.
send messages to? That's all data. It shows human behavior. The text shows grammar and how to use it. There's facts in there. I mean, these programs want that data. And again, more data translates into incrementally more performance. And then, of course, there's the issue of the environment. Uh, I am really stunned at how much money is being invested in data centers. When you think of globally, how many trillions of dollars are going into data centers, how many of the world's problems of poverty, for example, could be solved if all that money was just applied to making this world a better place than to build data centers that use a lot of water and energy and environmentally unfriendly. I mean, okay, I'm sure I sound like I'm a real green environmentalist, but there are a lot of problems in this world that we could solve with the vast amounts of money like that's going into to AI data
Hmm.
center infrastructure. So that was the motivation. And I've been at the University of Alberta for 40 years. And after 40 years, I've had a great career. I've published lots of papers, worked with great students, taught amazing students. But it was time for a change. And it wasn't enough to be able to talk the talk and say, hey, I think there's a better way. I had to walk the walk. So I left the university and I started a company, and we produced our first product. It's been out for 6 months, and it's called Kind, which originally stood for Knowledge Index and now stands for Knowledge in Depth. So it's sort of an acronym. And
Hmm.
what it does is try and address the problems that I identified. So think of it this way: you've got your own ChatGPT on your desktop. It's more than that, but that's an easy way to think about it. The idea
Hmm.
is, instead of moving your data to the cloud to get access to high performance AI, we move the AI from the cloud onto your desktop so that you can get high performance AI for your files. So if you want to ask questions about the world, yes, you have to go to ChatGPT or Google or Claude. But if you want to ask questions and understand your data, your financial data, your family history, the book that you're writing, your stamp collection, stuff like that, what this program does is analyze the data on your computer and allow you to ask questions and do things using only your data. So if you ask a question, the answers only come from your data, and all the information is cited back to the original document that's on your computer, right? And so the fabrication problems go away. It's highly accurate, and sometimes it'll
Mm-hmm.
make mistakes because it misunderstands you or doesn't give enough detail. But that's a different kind of problem. So it's 100% private. Your data never goes to Google or any of these other large language model providers for training. So you got the privacy that you want. Uh, you're not sending queries over the internet. You're not paying token charges. You're not paying $20 or $30 a month to get an internet large language model account. But one of the things that's important to me, again, is the environmental movement, and their mantra is think globally but act locally. And in some small way, I like kind uh, to be part of that movement because I'm thinking globally that you want access to high performance AI, but you don't want the environmental footprint. So let's put it on your desktop. And now you're
Mm-hmm.
not using these data centers. If we all started using local AI, we wouldn't need these data centers. And if you think about local AI, it makes sense. I don't know what computer you're using right now, but I got a computer in front of me. It's a Mac. It's got 18 cores in it. It's got 24 gigabytes of memory. It's a powerful computer, right? And for most people, that computer, you've already paid for it. It's a sunk cost. It's sitting idle.
Mm-hmm.
Is it busy during weekends? Is it busy during the evening or all night long? Is it busy on holidays? Even during the day, my computer's largely idle. I've got so much computing resources right in front of me. Why not use it for the AI? There are things that we
Mm-hmm.
can do in kind that Google can't do for you. And the reason is because we've got your CPU. We can use it to do all sorts of deep AI analysis on your data for you. And it doesn't cost you anything because you've already bought the computer. You could do
Mm-hmm.
these same things using agents with Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini, but you'd have to take your data and move it into the cloud and then pay the price for having all these agents to do the analysis, and you'd be facing token charges. Why do that? Just do it on your desktop. You're not paying for any infrastructure. You're not paying for any tokens. So thinking globally and you're acting locally, you're not feeding the data center craze. So for
Mm-hmm.
all of those reasons, that's why we did it. I believe, perhaps naively, but I believe that we can help course correct where AI is going and make it about the individual. And I think that most individuals have a lot of data, useful data, important data, personal data on their own computers that is untapped. And why not? I'll give you a perfect example. I have 40 years of presentations, public speaking, lectures I've given in courses, lectures I've given at conferences, right? Hundreds of
Mm-hmm.
presentations. I just say, hey, I'm going to create what we call a collection. Here are all my presentations over the last 40 years. Analyze them. And it does. And now I can ask questions. I can find out, hey, I gave that talk on that particular day, or I can say, I think I once talked about something, and it'll find it for me, tell me back, or I'm going to give a new talk and it will tell me, the pieces from previous presentations that I could use to create my new presentation. It's all coming from my data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I find that exciting.
No, that's great. How does it work on the back end? Is that like a pre-trained local model or something? Or
So, yeah, good
uh
question. So, uh, first of all, we don't do training on models. So
Mm-hmm.
what happens is when you get Kind, it downloads basically two things: the executable program,
Mm-hmm.
and it uses an open source model. We choose the open source model based on models that are we at Synsira believe are, highest quality. They're not biased. They're fair.
Mm-hmm.
And based on the resources on your computer, you might get a big model or a small model, depending upon how powerful your computer is, how much memory, how much disk. And then we have our AI, which is proprietary, that does use this model to help us analyze your data. So, for example, a big component of what these models do for us is help us understand videos and images. So we
Mm-hmm.
didn't write the code to do video analysis. We use these models to take pictures from your documents or maybe your family photos and analyze them for you. Or maybe you put in your favorite videos and we do the analysis of the speech and the pictures inside, sorry, the images inside or the frames inside your videos. And we use those models for it. And we also use the models for grammar, because once you ask a question, we need to be able to take the facts that we find and stitch them together into a readable answer for you. And those models contain that. So the point here is that you use uh, our code and the tools that we've built, and behind it, they're also using these models, public domain, open source models, to help generate the answers. But there's one subtlety in here that I think is really important, and it excites me. Maybe it doesn't excite everybody, but it's stunning how fast the world of AI is advancing. It's unprecedented in human history. And
Mm-hmm.
if you go to the leaderboards that compare the chatbot programs, you can say, "Hey, look, today OpenAI's got the best chatbot according to this metric, and 2 weeks ago it was Gemini, and a month ago it was Claude, and tomorrow, oh no, there'll be a new announcement, and it's who knows what is now the best one." It's changing so quickly. And this all came out of a user who said, "Oh, I don't know what I want to use AI. Should I be using Claude? I hear all these things about Claude, but I grew up using ChatGPT and I trust Google. And which one should I choose? I don't want to have three accounts, right?"
Yeah.
And what we do with our product is those open source models. We do your work. We decide which is best.
Mm-hmm.
You're curating your data. You have your data sets. You've chosen what's best. Synsira does the same thing with the AI. It's our job to understand what's happening in the world and choose the best model. So, for example, if you download Kind Local Pro today, inside it uses an open source model from Google. But if you were testing our product a month ago, it was using a different model. And in that time period, we said, you know what? This new model from Google, it's better than the one we were using before.
Mm-hmm.
So we swap out the old and we swap in the new. And we're going to be releasing a new version of our program in a couple of weeks. We may swap the model again, just because we think, because the advances are happening weekly, that there's even a better model out there. Maybe it's smaller or more powerful, or it's more free of bias or whatever. And we may
Mm-hmm.
swap in a new model, which means you don't have to worry about it. It's not your job to understand what's happening in the AI field. It's our job to make sure that you get the highest quality AI experience.
Yeah, and I mean, for most everyday tasks, all of those models are fine. It's not like we're doing high precision calculations of some sort, like, I don't know, astrophysics, math, or whatever.
And,
so,
and that's true. One of the
so,
things that's really important for people to understand is that when you hear a lot of things about these models and the incredible things that they're doing, it's on the high end. These are capabilities that the average person doesn't need. I mean, to have these models, uh, figure out ways to you know break into websites, which is something that's been happening recently, or using them to discover new medical treatments, or use them to to use your example, to help them understand new properties of physics. Okay, that's research. Maybe that's for the big companies. It's not for you and for me. For most things that you and I do, which is reading, writing, asking questions, finding information, uh, the capabilities right now are pretty darn good, and an incremental improvement of 1% or 2 or 5% really makes no difference. And if you're paying 20 or $30 US a month for an internet provider to do those kind of things, if you're paying $30 a month to Claude, and all you're using for Claude is to give it your data, which it might use to train on, and ask simple questions, then you're actually not spending your money wisely, because a lot of that can just be done on your desktop, on your computer, with a one-time investment in software, and not paying token charges and not paying monthly fees.
So people will buy product one time, just like, for example, like Windows operating system, and then get updates once in a while?
Right. So the way it works is you purchase it once. It's $79 in the first year, and that you get all sorts of updates, which are bug fixes, and upgrades, which are new features and new functionality and new models, perhaps, etc. And then every year there's just a $39 renewal fee to keep going.
Oh, just for support, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's pretty cheap. That's a lot cheaper than most of these tools.
Well, and that's part of our argument. And
Yeah.
yes, you're not going to use our models to do medical research. We agree, but we're targeting consumers because there are a lot of consumers out there that really could benefit from AI. One, I know this will sound silly, but I'm old enough, and I have the gray hair, I guess, to prove it, but I'm old enough to admit that I saw Star Trek when it first came out. Okay, I was young and perhaps definitely did not fully understand it, but I've watched the original series over and over again. And when I got into AI, the computer in Star Trek was my role model for AI. And you had Captain Kirk and you had Spock, and they would ask questions to the computer. And the computer was all business. You would ask it a question, it would go off and think. It may answer right off the bat, or it may go off and think for a few minutes or whatever, and come back with an answer. And it would give you the answer or its best estimate of what the answer was. And if it didn't know, it said it didn't know. And in my mind, that's what AI should be. It's not my friend. It's not something I want to chat with. It's a resource that I want to use to help me be more productive. The way I like to think about the computer in Star Trek and the computer that we're building with, the program we're building with Kind, is that it's a different kind of AI. We think of AI as artificial intelligence, but I like to think about it as augmented intelligence. I've got the intelligence, and I want to use this program to augment, help me. I look at Kind and saying, hey, I was a professor. This is like my graduate student. I'm going to ask my graduate student something to do, and it gives him back the answer. And if the student doesn't know, he admits it. He says, I don't know. There's no bullshit. Oh, sorry. There's no fabrications, right? And there's no personality there. Kind has no personality. We're not trying to be your friend. We're trying to help you. And I think that's the best way to think about AI, as a tool that helps you be more productive or improve whatever you're doing, or add value to your life. It's not your friend. It's not what AI. It's not part of the direction that AI is going today. I think we want to think of it as a tool and not our colleague or our friend, something that we should be talking to. We want something that helps us by giving us fact-based answers. It doesn't lie to us. It doesn't fabricate answers. And it has
Mm-hmm.
to say, I don't know, when it doesn't have the information.
Yeah, and I mean, people are encouraged to do that, and there is no shame in something not knowing something, right? We do all the time, but we expect AI, and probably it feels better than it make up stuff and tell us something rather than being uh, like just blank or I don't know, just go do yourself. We don't like that because we paid money for it. It got to give us something.
Right. Well, actually, you just anthropomorphized. You said, it, quote, it feels better, unquote. And if that applied to the software, it doesn't have any feeling, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
if these programs try to give you an answer, and
yeah,
that answer, whether it's baloney or whether it's gold, they don't understand, they don't appreciate, they don't know that they're actually generating work for you by giving you fictitious answers. They're just doing what they've been told to do, which is flip enough coins, generate the text, and you judge the quality of the answer. But uh, it's the anthropomorphization that's a real killer to
yeah,
me. When knowledgeable people like you, myself, and many others, we get it. But having given so many public talks to the average person on the street who doesn't understand this technology, they don't get it. They they still think that these are super intelligent programs, and it doesn't help that in the media we're talking about the day that super intelligence comes, or AGI as it's
yeah.
called, artificial general intelligence, because all that does is cement in people's minds that these programs are smarter than them and can do amazing things. The human brain is incredible. We can do amazing things. And using these programs to help us, we can be better. We can be more productive. We can be more creative. And that's what I want to see.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then we hear stories when companies actually employing a lot of these AI agents, replacing jobs, real jobs, right? And or trying to substitute a lot of them, like software vibe coding type things. Many people writing software code, and actually, I talked with a few people who are now saying you should not be deploying your code so fast because it's all junk. It's so many bugs, so many security issues, and blah blah blah. So yeah, it's amazing how quickly it moves, and how people at the same time they're concerned about their privacy, right? But at the same time they also willing to give up and share all their data, all their information, just to get the answers or just to ask one question or something like that. It's interesting.
It's interesting, but I guess I'm old school. I value privacy, and I think we should all value privacy. But I am concerned at the public perception of these programs. The media and the companies have sort of created this impression about how capable these programs are, how intelligent they are.
Hmm.
And it's really only in the last year that there's been a reckoning, and people have understood that these programs have severe limitations. I remember in the first year after ChatGPT exploded on that magical day, November 30th, 2022, companies said, "Oh, wow, we're going to use these programs for our online help, and we're going to replace people with programs that answer users' questions." And many of those companies have gone back to using people because the programs, yeah, they got it right sometimes, and they got it wrong lots of
Hmm.
times, and those lots of times were pretty costly to the companies. People are discovering these programs have limitations. A 95% accuracy rate sounds pretty darned impressive. Hey, if I was a student and I was scoring 95% on all my exams, I'd be really proud. But when it comes to AI, 95, even 99% isn't good enough. We need to trust these programs that that they do the right thing, and they don't yet. And people say, oh, come on, 99%, that's good enough. But think about it this way. You own a car. You have no problem driving it to and from work, going out on holidays, going to the theater. You might put 20, 30,000 miles on every year. You might have done, quarter of a million, 500,000 miles in your lifetime. You trust your car that it's safe and it's dependable. And part of the reason it is because there's agencies that oversee the cars. I just can't build a car and expect to sell it. That there's rules and regulations. It has to be inspected.
Mm-hmm.
If I design something and I said, hey, here's this car, and guess what? My brakes, they only work 99% of the time. And I'll give you a really good price because they only work 99% of the time. You would never buy the car because 99% on brakes is a no starter. You would never accept a car that only the brakes only work 99% of the time. Well, with AI, we're being conned to accepting AI, even though it lies. And I don't know what the error rate is, the fabrication rate, the hallucination rate is. It's high. It's it's certainly much higher than 1% of the times. Let's be conservative and say it's 5% of the time. But again, do I want a product where 5% of the time I'm getting crap, fabricated references, made up stories, made up facts? The answer is no. And we need a mindset change. I would never accept 95 or 99% in my car. Why am I accepting it in my software products?
Yeah, and the problem is you don't know which 5%, the 1% is a wrong, right? If you knew, that would be easy. If it would say in those 5%, instead of lying or saying something, it would say, I don't know.
Right.
That would be acceptable. But yeah, that's a challenge. You don't know which 5% it is.
Well, but
So
again,
it's 100.
yeah, but this is consistent with the fact that it does this coin flipping, and so
Yeah,
sometimes you get the right answer, and sometimes you don't, and who knows when that is. But that's your
yeah,
responsibility. You're expected to look at the answer and do your own homework to see whether you trust the answer.
yeah,
I would love to create a day where we have AI programs that we trust, that these programs work at such a high level that we have confidence that they're going to get it right. Everybody occasionally makes a mistake. It's human. But right now, with these programs, the mistake level is just far too high, unacceptably high.
yeah. I wanted also to ask something else which related to privacy and accuracy. Like we're being asked to provide as much context and details as possible for these AI programs to be more accurate for us. First of all, how true is that? And second of all, like what's the limit? How much you need to give it to get the acceptable level of accuracy? I guess for many people it could be different, but I mean, like how to balance it, and can it even be possible to do that?
Yeah, there are definitely AIs out there where they learn from your behavior. They better understand what what you do and what you like and what you don't like. And I guess humans are like that too. I mean, obviously, if you're married,
Hmm.
you learn what your wife likes and doesn't like, and she vice versa, and we create this symbiotic relationship. And there are AIs out there that try to do that, but again, it's not perfect. It's These computers aren't human. They don't understand empathy. They don't
Mm-hmm.
understand the psychology of humans well enough, and so it's it's hard for these programs to learn. The other thing that is difficult is that there's something amazing about the human brain which I don't understand. Is I can show you one example of something, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
learn it immediately and never have to learn it again. If I um, if I was a kid and I went up to the oven and the burner was on and I touched the burner and I went, ouch, right? I would learn that that's hot. And if I touch it, I'm going to get a sore hand, finger, whatever, and I won't do it again because it was too painful.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked on poker programs for a number of years, teaching AI how to uh, play poker, to be a strong poker player. And you just look at these programs and how they learn. They need lots of statistics. That they don't have the intuition, they don't have the understanding that humans do, and they don't learn from one data point. You need to give them lots of data points, and then eventually they start figuring out that, oh, maybe you like to bluff a lot, or this or that or whatever. But they need lots of data before they're confident in making a decision. And we're not like that. We can learn really, really quickly about other people and what their preferences are, how they operate. And these computers just need lots of data. And that's in part why these large language models want more data, right? The internet, everything that's on the internet isn't enough. They'd love to see every single file on everybody's desktop. They'd love to see all the data that's behind paywalls or in secret
Mm-hmm.
locations or whatever, because the more data they get, the more they can make better coin flips. And if I can just, I don't want to get philosophical or religious or whatever, but the more you study AI, the more you just get amazed at the human brain and what its capabilities are. It's unbelievable that in such a small space right here, it weighs what, about 3 pounds on average.
Yeah.
And yet, what we can do with speech and vision and hearing and reasoning and memory. If I were to design the human brain, if I was the one who could design it, I would have had another slot in there so I could add more memory. But given my limited memory, I think we all do pretty well, and it's incredible. And what's even more amazing to me, and it's actually very satisfying, is when you see humans being able to do things very easily that
Yeah.
computers find challenging or difficult. Anyway, I have
Yeah.
enormous respect for what we as the human race have accomplished and will accomplish in the future with AI's help.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a topic for another podcast because I immediately have a bunch of questions about that. How to compare like computers and brains and how many years it takes to get to that level. So, but just wrapping up the conversation here, from your opinion, what would be something that you personally like most people, or everybody who use AI to adopt certain behaviors or certain practices interacting with AI tools that you think will help them um, use it more, uh, use it better, like don't give up too much privacy, but also get all this, like you're saying, augmented intelligence from them.
I think everybody needs a basic AI education. And I don't mean that they have to go back to school and take a course, but just understanding that these programs can fabricate. And it's not malicious. It's not like they're trying to do you any harm. It's just fundamental in how they are. I mean, I have some friends who lie a lot, and I know that. And I certainly take it account when they make some claims that I clearly don't believe. But people just need to understand that these programs are not intelligent. You shouldn't treat them as intelligent. You should treat them as tools that can help you. And the other thing that I think is really important is there's no free lunch. And what I mean by that is these companies are very happy to entice you with free things. And in many ways, maybe it all started with social media. Hey, get a free social media account and upload your photos and your videos, and you can chat with your family and friends. But of course, it's zero cost to you. It's costing them real money because they need the infrastructure, et cetera. But they're getting data,
Mm-hmm.
and they use that data and they can mine that data. And it's no different now with AI. They want to encourage you to put your data in the cloud, right? We'll host your data, we'll do the backup of your data, but they get to see your data and they might train off your data and use your data. And, um, I've written uh, books, for example, and the books, they're not on the internet. I've never put my books on the internet. I guess maybe somebody has, but, you know, I've seen examples where AIs come back and they've plagiarized from my book.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to put my stuff up there and see it plagiarized. If I was a company, or yeah, I'm a professor, I have my intellectual property. I have hundreds of notes of ideas I've had in the past. Companies have documents of their strategic plans, ideas, confidential relationships with customers. You put it up in the cloud or just send it that data to a chat program to analyze, there is a significant risk that that will be ingested in these programs and might show up somewhere else unexpected in ways that maybe don't reflect very well on you or who knows what. And we need to be aware, just like using computers with networks, we've had to learn a whole new nomenclature because there can be spam. How many people knew about spam until we got email? What about
Mm-hmm.
phishing attacks and denial of service attacks? I mean, all these new terms that we've learned, and now with AI, there's new terms and new risks that we need to be aware of. And I just want consumers to be aware. I'm not saying don't use ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and Llama and whatever. I'm just saying just be a knowledgeable user. Know
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing, that the answers may be wrong, how to recognize when they're wrong, know, understand about data and how it might be used or abused, and just make the decisions that are best for you. I have lots of data that I don't care if it goes in the cloud because it's doesn't bother me. But I have lots of data that I never want to see in the cloud. I'm not going to put my personal data in the cloud. I want it on my desktop, and I want to be able to use state of the art tools to analyze it, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yep. All right. Thanks, Jonathan, for all the information and sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. But before you go, I have three questions. My
Okay.
innovation Q&A. They're short. They're supposed to be short. So, can you define innovation in a few words?
Innovation to me is tackling a real problem, not an abstract problem, but something that's real, that affects real people, that has practical
Mm-hmm.
value. So innovation is solving problems that affect real people. And so I would like to call my product Kind a form of innovation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Second question is, which innovation in the history of the world do you think changed the world the most?
Well, history of the world's a long time. So if I just think about in my lifetime,
Okay.
I believe the most profound change, innovative change, came from the World Wide Web because it took this world and made it a lot smaller. We could communicate with people in rather cumbersome ways. I could make a very expensive long distance phone calls to my family. Um, we had email, we had networking then, so I could send emails. But the World Wide Web really shrunk the world. I can literally go anywhere in the world and do almost anything from my desk, from my office, and it's amazing.
Yeah. The last question is, which one thing, like a technology, software, or device that we use today, we will be laughing at 10 years from now?
There's a lot of things, but I would have to say it's passwords.
Okay.
You know, I have to right now come up with a password. I have sites which you have to have at least 8 characters, and you have to have a digit in it and a special character, and there's got to be at least one capital and one small. And um, you're encouraged to have every site a different password. And I can't remember all of them, and on and on and on. Whereas uh, retinal or fingerprint or some other form, visual recognition, bang, I'm in, right? And so I have wasted a lot of time with passwords just because I don't remember them and I'm asked to change them often on many sites, and I just find it frustrating. So I look forward to the day when I'm not typing in textual passwords anymore.
Yeah, I look forward to that too. That's a good one. All right. Thank you very much. And yeah, I hope we can talk more about other topics sometime in the future and stay in touch.
Thank you
And
very
that's
much.
been great.
It was a real pleasure talking to you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Goodbye.
I hope this conversation gave you fresh ideas and inspiration. If so, please share it with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a quick comment. It helps more people discover this episode. See you next time.